Hello, everybody. This is J.W. Najarian. I'm here today with Steve Farber. How you doing?
I'm doing great, J.W. Thanks.
Well, we're at Blogworld 2011.
Is that a question? Or?
No, yeah, it could be. Are we at Blogworld 2011?
I believe we are.
Oh, okay. So we're at Blogworld 2011, and so what are you doing out here?
Well, I just came up to visit and say hi to some friends, and so I didn't get a chance to participate in the whole conference, but I came in time for the shindig last night and got to catch a couple of presentations today. It's been great.
That's great. I'm really glad to have you here today. You came out with your new book, a compilation, I understand, of two other books,
yes,
right? And here it is. It's a Radical Leap, Re-Energized,
right.
And that's a compilation of two books. What's the name of those?
Yeah, so the first book that I ever wrote came out in 2004. It's called The Radical Leap, a personal lesson in extreme leadership. It was followed up a couple years later by The Radical Edge. And the third book is called Greater Than Yourself, but I wrote Leap and Edge as part one and part two. And the Radical Leap has been around for a while. It's had a great impact on a lot of people, and it was time to kind of bring it some new life. Right. But it's also a parable. I write novels, business novels, basically. Yeah. Although the application goes beyond business, certainly. But typically when you want to bring new life to a book that's been out for a couple of years, you do a new edition. Well, with a novel, that's kind of hard to do. Right. Change a little punctuation. I don't know. So I really have had this desire for a while to take the two books and put them together into one volume, because that's the way I originally conceived them anyway. And I was able to pull it off. It was wonderful. So we put these two books together, part one and part two, and called it The Radical Leap Re-Energized. And we've added a little bit of kind of a social media component to it. We've put QR codes actually throughout the book, so that when you're reading along in the story and you come across these QR codes, if you scan it, it'll take you to some additional content, video and audio, that'll expand on what you're reading in the book at that moment. Oh,
that's brilliant. That's
pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So did you think of that, or?
I wish I could say that I did. It was actually my publishing partners at No Limit Publishing. It was their idea, and I have to tell you that it kind of gave me, it was one of those goosebump moments. It gave me chills, because I saw the potential for it. And the other thing, of course, that we're going to do is, because it's it's basically just a link to a video or an audio, we can change it as often as we want, right?
Oh yeah, it's like
dynamic content.
Exactly, ever changing.
So I've had people tell me, I'm very gratified to say that they've read my books several times. This is yet another reason to do that, right? Because you never know if it's going to change or not. If you
have to,
that QR
you get
code,
their email address, you can write them back and say, you got to read it one more time.
Right, exactly. But the so thank you for asking. But really, the message of the book, I think, is really what's most important. At least that's what people have told me over the years. Right. LEAP is an acronym that stands for Love, Energy, Audacity, and Proof. And it's been my argument, because I've been in leadership development in the business world for 20 years, and it's my argument, based on everything that I've seen, that really love is at the foundation of what great leadership is, and it's at the foundation of great business. And we're not accustomed to using the word love and business in the same sentence, most of us. It seems to be they're inappropriate together. But
let's define that a little bit, because somebody could be thinking right now that you're talking about passion for the business and passion for what you're doing. Other things people could be saying, oh, does he love his employees or his or what's that about?
Yeah, I would say yes. All the above. Yeah, it may not be love the way you think of love of spouse or child or significant other, but it's certainly, it could be love of the business. It could be love of the people that you work with, love of the customers that you serve, love of the great future you can create together, love of the values that you stand for. And the reason is, and love is a strong word, and I use it deliberately because I do think it is the right word, but it's got a lot of shades to it, right? We use it in a lot of different contexts, but fundamentally, if we don't have the connection of the heart, we don't step up. Why would you put yourself at risk if your heart weren't in it? Why would you really try to do something cool and extraordinary if your heart weren't in it? Why would you sit down and write a blog post every day? I wish I did, but for those that do, why would you do that if your heart weren't in it? That's what drives you. So I'm just trying to acknowledge that, right? And in the context of business, in my opinion, you can't, in the same breath, say that we want our customers to love us. right? Which we should want.
Absolutely.
Because if they're only satisfied with us, we're losing the game, and we should all know that by now.
Right.
That should be conventional wisdom by now. But we can't say we want our customers to love us, but at the same time disregard the role of the heart in every other aspect of the business. If I create an environment that people hate working in, how are they going to create an experience, a product or a service that the customer is going to love? It's just not going to happen. So it's just damn good business as far as I'm concerned.
Right. I think the old model of adversarial business where somebody's got to lose for somebody to win is a paradigm that's well gone. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's obviously I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I do think, though, that there's still a gap in a lot of places between what we have come to recognize intellectually, conceptually, and what we actually do about it, right? So it's closing the gap between what we aspire to or what we claim to believe in and what we actually do.
Right. Well, what I've noticed at the show here at Blogworld, blogs used to not be taken totally seriously by corporate, in the corporate view. They were just a bunch of guys out there talking about their home and their life and whatever's going on in the world, and maybe some help with the camera or how to do something. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed this year at Blogworld, and I think it's been happening for a while, and that is corporations are really getting in touch with these bloggers, because bloggers have something marketing people don't, and that's this ability to build huge community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think certainly that's a big part of it. I'll just speak for myself. As a lot of people here at Blogworld are, I'm an entrepreneur. Right. I don't have a big company. I mean, I have a lot of the work that I do is virtual, right, through relationships that I have and come together on projects and so forth. But my business is a lot of it is speaking. I do a lot of paid speaking engagements and writing and consulting and training and so forth. And my approach to blogging has been the benefits that I've gotten from that. I can't even. It's hard to put into words. I mean, in terms of the connections that I've made, the friends that I've made.
Are you actually doing your own blog, Steve?
I do. Yeah.
Where can you find that?
SteveFarber.com or ExtremeLeadership.com points to that as well. But in Twitter, for example, I'll give you a perfect business case for why this is worthwhile. I have set up on my Twitter search terms for all the titles of my book, all of my 3 books. Well, they were 3 books, now they're 2 books. That's a little confusing. But I was, I saw something pop up it was within the last year, under the search term The Radical Leap. I saw somebody had tweeted that they were reading The Radical Leap as part of their company book club. So I did some research into who that company is, and somebody in my management office followed up on that. They ended up hiring me to come in and speak to their senior management team. Mm-hmm. And since then, we formed a partnership where I'm doing all kinds of stuff for their clients as their kind of leadership, for lack of a better word, guru in-house. Right. And it's developed into this tremendous relationship from one tweet. Wow. And that kind of stuff goes on every day. So if people ask me, is it worth your time, to spend in social media? I'm living proof that it is. But beyond that, it is that sense of community, right. Whether it's a huge community or not. If it's a well-defined message that you're working with, you're going to attract the right kind of people for whatever your business is.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting into your book a little bit, you talked about LEAP, the acronym LEAP. What are some of the bigger mistakes that companies make when they're that you see?
Well, that's a huge question. Yeah. I mean, you have to kind of define the context a little bit, but I think it's from my perspective anyway, and I tend to look at everything through a lens of leadership and the human side, the people side of business. I think that we don't, in general, most companies don't really pay enough attention to the kind of environment that they create for their employees. my belief is that a company should create an environment that people, here comes that word again, that people love working in. So that when you wake up in the morning and you think about the workday that's ahead of you, you shouldn't be overcome with the sense of dread and having this big question like, how am I going to survive this day? Or which of my dearly held morals or values am I going to have to compromise to make it through this day? That's not where your mind should take you. It should be filled with this hope and this expectation that when I go to work today, I can do something cool, I can do something significant, I can do something meaningful. And I think if companies pay more attention to trying to create that kind of environment for people, what they can do with all the specifics, the transactional nature of their work, the product, service, process side of it, it can be far more extraordinary than they believe is possible at the moment.
Right, and that's the question I should ask is, how do you, it sounds so easy, to think of things with love and have your people love their job, and when you're thinking about the bottom line, that can be hard sometimes. How do you wrap your mind around that?
Yeah, it's not. Again, I think it's an easy concept to get. Putting it into practice, of course, is challenging, and that's the other side of the equation. By the way, it's that if you really take this seriously, and you begin to bring the heart into your work, and you act from that standpoint, you start to ask different questions, right? So, in addition to the questions, which I'm not saying we should stop asking, like how are we going to improve our market share, increase our margins, increase our productivity, and all that, right. We should always ask those questions, but we start to ask a bigger question, which is, in the contribution that we make to our product or service, how are we going to change our piece of the world for the better? This idea of changing the world has become a cliche, right. And that's unfortunate, because I think what trips us up is we tend to interpret world as whole wide world, as we used to say when we were kids, right? The very fabric of human existence. And there are companies out there that you can make a very compelling case that that's really what they're doing. Is they're trying to change the world, capital T, capital W, for the better. Apple, for example, a nice example. But all of us operate in a world, a smaller W world. So how are we going to change the world of our customers, of our marketplace, of our employees, of our neighborhood, community, family, one person in our family? Those are the kind of questions you start to ask when you ask it from the heart, right? Changes the conversation. Absolutely. But then when you start to act on it, and this is that flip side of the coin, it's scary. It's scary. And it should be scary. Because if it's not scary, you're not doing anything. Right? Yeah. And I call that the pursuit of the OSM, which is spelled capital O, capital S, exclamation point, capital M, which stands for the oh shit moment, right? So that's the experience. So love is the motivation, but when you step up and try to change your piece of the world for the better, it's going to be a scary thing. And that's not bad, is my point. It's a good thing. It's a sign that you're actually doing something. So I think companies, it's a tangential answer to your question, which is how does this translate to the bottom line, or what do you need to do specifically in order to get it there? There are thousands of things that a company and individuals in that company can do to create an environment that people love working in. But I don't think it should be that much of a stretch, or if I could, no pun intended, leap right. to get from love to the bottom line. Because again, it comes down to, are we creating stuff that our customers are going to love? If they love it, that's where the loyalty comes from. That's where the buzz factor comes from. That's where the word of mouth. That's where the repeat business comes from. It's the kind of experience that we want to create for people. Okay, and I mean, you're still in businesses. You're still doing the coaching, that kind of stuff. So when these guys do change their paradigm, when they shift, and things are working, are these great wins for them? Are these major changing moments for them, or is it just it's a lot of guys in business. I work in commercial real estate, and they would just say, "Oh, that's all woo-woo stuff," and we're not about woo-woo stuff. Right.
We're about the numbers and the figures and stuff. But when that shift happens. Oftentimes, can it catapult a business to a whole new place?
Yeah, certainly it can. First of all, This is not, and I could say this because I live in California, as do you. This is not California touchy-feely hoo-ha crap. Right. It's not woo-woo stuff. It's this whole idea of soft. That's the soft stuff. Is bullshit. I mean, what that's saying is that comment basically disregards 99% of the human experience. So again, you can't on the one hand say our people are our most important asset, and at the same time say that's touchy-feely woo-woo crap. But I understand the spirit of it, right? I mean, I understand where the question comes from. Is it how is this going to translate into results? So the experience can be dramatic. I think the drama, or what appears to be drama, or the major shifts tends to happen more on the individual level, right? I think for a lot of people, my work is a confirmation of impulses that they've had but have never acted on, right? And so it appears to be a major transformation because now they're acting on it, but it's still who they were. They just weren't expressing it, right? But then there are companies like a company that I've gotten to know very well is a company in San Diego called Kineticom, right? So they're in the staffing industry, although they like to refer to themselves as a talent agency, and they've an incredibly successful company. They have, in addition to their another set of values at Kineticom, they have incorporated love, energy, audacity, and proof into their corporate fabric, right? So what that looks like is cultivate love is one of their corporate values, okay? And they spell it out behaviorally what that looks like in the context of the work that they do at Kineticom. And then people are measured by that. So their performance evaluations, that factors in there, and even before that, if you rewind the tape, it's part of their interview process. And at one point, I'm not sure if they're still doing it exactly this way, but at one point, if you were going to interview at Kineticom, you had to read the Radical Leap first, because they said this is our culture. Now, the difference there is it's not like they were going off on one track and then they found this book and they inserted it and they went off on another track. It was an articulation of really what they already believed in. It just kind of pulled it together for them. So it's kind of that impulse thing that we were just talking about at an individual level. On a corporate level, it just gave them a structure to say, this is going to help us be more of who we are. And this is a company that kicks ass, and they're incredible. They really are incredible. Check them out. Kineticom, Kineticom.
Okay, and so is one of the places you start with a company about is redoing their mission, vision statements and value statements?
I'm always careful about that.
Okay.
And the reason is that a lot of what's happened is because we know we're supposed to have vision statements, mission statements, etc. In a lot of places, in fact, I would venture to say in most places, it's become an end in and of itself, right? Let's create the vision statement. Let's create the mission statement. Let's make sure that the words are exactly right. So typically what happens is a bunch of executives get together, they go away on an offsite somewhere and they sit down and they have a poetry contest, right? And they hammer out just the right words and phrases and they work on it for days and they fight over every choice of words, and then they're so proud of their final result that they laminate it, right? On little wallet-sized cards, hand it out to everybody in the organization, put up a full-colored or calligraphy copy in the reception area somewhere, and then they sit back and they go, what the hell's wrong with these people? How come nothing's changed here? I mean, can't they read? Look at this beautiful mission statement. And the reason that happens, and by the way, I'm not cynical about that. I think that is a good thing for companies to do, but the problem is that that's usually where the process stops.
Oh, okay.
That's where it should start.
Right.
We've articulated what we believe in. Now the question becomes, do we live up to it through our actions? If you read this mission statement or vision statement, and then you look around the company and you see the way we do business, does it pass what one of my colleagues once called it the Snicker test, right? Do people read that and they go, yeah, right.
So now you have to test all your processes against what you believe.
Not only processes, but individual behaviors, right? So, a classic that you see on just about every values statement in, companies across the country is treat people with dignity and respect, or honesty and integrity. And, of course, I better say that.
Right.
Simon Billsbury, who's the CEO of Kineticom, he said his opinion on that is, you shouldn't have honesty and integrity in your mission statement, because you should just have, if that's not there, you should be in jail. Which is absolutely true. But anyway, so the work that I do, and I think what my what people get from reading my books, etc., is holding ourselves accountable to our own words. Accountability is a very interesting word, because here's the way I typically hear it used, right? Accountability is that thing that we desperately want other people to take. Right? So this is really about holding ourselves ridiculously accountable to our own words individually and as an organization. So it's holding people's feet to the fire and say, okay, you say you believe in honesty and integrity, diversity, dignity of the individual. Prove it.
Oh, Steve, come on. Yeah, don't do as I do. Do as I say.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's the P in LEAP, right? That's the proof. Prove it. Prove you mean it. But also what I found is, I mean, these principles are I didn't make them up, right? I mean, they're my words. I'm just trying to articulate what I've seen over the years. And what's really blown my mind in this whole thing is, I thought I was writing a business book. And I do, obviously the application is very strong in business, but I've come to discover is that these principles really apply to just about every context, and they resonate with people in all different kinds of roles. And most significant to me over the last several years is the influence that this book, particularly the ideas represented in Leap Re-Energized, is having in the field of public education. And I know this because I've had several principals, superintendents, administrators, and teachers from around the country, independent from each other, reach out to me to say, I read this book, and it changed the way that I lead in my school, and we're getting tremendous results. And this is what the field of education needs. And the question that many of them have asked me over the last couple of years is, what are you doing to bring these ideas into the field of education? And my answer has always been, nothing. It never occurred to me, right? So what's happened is I've gotten to know these folks, and I have a lot of passion for kids, and I know and a great reverence for teachers and the role of teachers in our society, and it's painful to me and just about everybody else in our country today when we look at the horrible state of education. So what these folks have told me is, we need to get these ideas out to all educators.
Well, it's really frustrating when you read a book and you're later on in life, and it says a lot to your book, okay, that somebody sees it and actually may even get pissed off that they didn't get this news earlier on in life, and they realize that the kids need it earlier on in life, because they're wasting a lot of time not knowing what's going on.
Yeah, but what's interesting about it to me is when we tend to think of education, and just what I said for the last couple of minutes is the conclusion a lot of us draw is, well, let's bring this in so the kids can read it. And that may be great, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the leaders in the school, the principals and teachers. They're the ones who they get so beaten down by the system, the budget pressures, the policy, by all the stuff the systemic things that we all know are a problem with it, that they lose heart and they lose hope. And for a lot of them, what they've realized is, things may be screwed up out here, but this is my school, or this is my classroom. So what am I going to do, regardless of what anybody else out there is or is not doing, to change this world for the better for these kids? That's what people are getting from this book. So,
are you talking about like leading from example? Because every teacher leads by example, okay, right? And
so whether they want to or not.
Exactly. So being better educated and having better knowledge, obviously they can educate.
Okay, so here's where it comes down to. We've talked about love and business and how that's a provocative thing. What's blown my mind about this whole thing that I'm learning about education is, as provocative as that is in the field of business, it's even more provocative in education. It's even more taboo in education. Educators don't use that word with each other. But when you sit down next to a really great educator, a great teacher or principal or whatever, and you ask them, one-to-one, tell me about, why do you do this? 99 out of 100 of the 999 out of 1,000 of the good ones will say, I love these kids. It's what drives a great teacher. A teacher has the ability, and they're going to do it whether they mean it or not, to change the lives of their students. Right. And I'm sorry, but it's just like I said, I have reverence for teachers. I really do. But when a teacher begins to believe that this is just a job for me, and they just go through the motions and their heart is gone.
And you talk about that, the burnout, right?
Yeah, which happens a lot. Well, you know what? They're affecting hundreds and hundreds, and depending on how long they teach, thousands of people through that loss of heart. Mm-hmm. So it's not enough to say it's just the system. So what we need to do, I think, is find those people that can change the system from within. So we want to get this book out to educators.
Right, and tell me about that, because you're actually doing you're doing a program, correct?
Yeah, and I haven't. This is the first time I'm talking about it publicly. We're going to get the word out here a little bit more out of the next couple of weeks. But the simple idea is this: we want to get the Radical Leap Re-Energized. This is our big, hairy, audacious goal to every educator in the country. That's the goal. It may take years to do that. It may never happen, but that's what we're shooting for. However, not by selling it to them, right? Because educators don't have any money, right? So here's what we're doing. We're borrowing a page. I may be mixing a metaphor here a little bit. We're borrowing a page from Tom's Shoes, from their strategy anyway. That for every book that we sell, every hardcover copy of the Radical Leap Re-Energized that we sell, we're going to give a book to an educator. That's great. And we're going to be rolling that program out in a very specific way. The details are still being put together. But basically, we'd like to focus on several school districts around the country at a time so we can tell their story and build up enough books that we could send it to a district all at once and then kind of see what happens. And here's my thinking behind it, right? I'm not naive. I'm not assuming that just dropping books off is going to change anything, right? But here's the logic.
The teachers will have to get it by osmosis at that point.
Yeah, of course. So here's, and am I a bit of an idealist? I will definitely cop to that, but I'm not naive. Okay, and really the thinking is this: if all these educators have this book, a certain percentage of them, I don't know what that percentage is, but a certain percentage of them will actually read it, right? Yeah. And it may be a small percentage, but a certain percentage will read it. And a certain percentage of the people that read it are going to connect with it and act on that basis like the educators that I've already met who got the book just kind of randomly, picked it up in a bookstore, somebody gave it to them or whatever. So that if you just by the sheer numbers, that'll be enough people to start changing what they're doing in their classroom, district, school, or whatever the context is, that I believe that it could really build up to a pretty significant effect system-wide. That's what we want to find out.
Well, that's how you do it. You do it organically, but you got to put the books out there. You got to
that's right.
You got to give them the opportunity.
Yeah, exactly right.
Let me shift a little bit on you.
Yes, sir.
This is all great stuff. I could go on about this all night, but I want to find out. We're at Blogworld here, and this is all about blogging and social media and those kind of things. Let me ask you some questions about social media. Because I know this, it's kind of new to you, right? Are you using it to market and those?
Yeah. It's not. I mean, I've had my blog up for several years now, probably since about I'm going to say 03, 04, something like that. I haven't been tremendously disciplined, but it gets pretty good traffic, and there's good stuff on there. I'm a huge. I can't even say that I'm a huge believer in social media. It just is. There's nothing to believe in. It's just so obvious the value.
Right.
So it's part of what I do. Now, in my case. And this is true for anybody that has a body of work that they're putting out there. There's people that connect with my books, or they hear me speak, or whatever. And it's just it is a platform, it's a community for them to get involved in, right. Not only to stay in touch with me personally, but also to learn from each other.
Are you finding that you're in touch with more people personally because of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's a good thing.
Well, I'll give you a couple of examples right here in Blogworld. Okay, so Liz Strauss, Terry Starbucker. I met them through the combination of my blog and the books, and they're very close friends. And through them, I can't tell you how many other people.
Liz is the one that threw us together.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got to read this book.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Not hey, you should check it out.
Right.
It's like, you must read this.
And that was almost from the beginning, back in '04 when the first version of the Radical Leap came out. And I've got probably a dozen other examples similar to that. But let me offer something else though. I think that social media is a platform, and these folks that I just mentioned, and everybody at Blogworld has stories like that. It becomes a platform where that goes beyond the virtual into the face-to-face, right? So what I do as an author is, if somebody reaches out to me, if somebody reads one of my books and is moved by it to the point where they actually say, send me an email, a thoughtful email, a couple of paragraphs, or writes a long comment on the blog, I'm going to call them. I call them. I don't just write back. I call them, and it's I've done that quite a few times over the years and have built some pretty amazing friendships. Now, that scares the hell out of some people, I would think. But for me, it's become one of the things that I really look forward to. Like I just got an email yesterday from a guy who said, I've read The Radical Leap, I read The Radical Edge, I read Greater Than Yourself, I've given it to all the people that work for me, and I see you got this new book coming out. I just wanted to write and tell you I'm really excited about it. And phone number at the bottom of the page. Well, he's getting a call from me on Monday or Tuesday. Yeah. And I have, for example, the first educator that I ever talked to was a principal who sent me this long email to tell me how much this book has meant to him in the way that he leads in his school and how he's created all these results and all that. I called him. This was a few years ago. His name is David Pinter. He's now the principal of Fort Caroline Elementary School in Jacksonville, Florida. At the time, he was the principal of Finnegan Elementary in Jacksonville, Florida. And I called him. I said, hey, I got this email. This is thank you so much. Tell me more. It blew his mind, which was kind of fun in and of itself. But he's become a very close friend. Well,
yeah, it's funny because I have some large groups in commercial real estate, and I have membership sites, and thousands and thousands of members, right? And I try to call 2 people a day on the list. I just pick a list, and I call somebody, and then every time somebody tweets me and says, has a question, I'll just write out my phone number and go, well, give me a call. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Or it's wild when they call you up and they go, oh my, you answer your own phone, and
yeah, exactly.
And it's
exactly.
like, yeah, I'm a guy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I was sitting in my office. This was just about a week and a half ago. And I don't usually answer the phone in my office because, frankly, if somebody calls and has a question about books or something, I don't usually know, I don't know the answer. But I just happened to pick. I don't know why. I just happened to pick up the phone, and the way I answered the phone, I said, "Steve Farber." That's the way I answered the phone. And there was just like this and she said, "Yeah, I'm calling to see if I can get some copies of The Radical Leap." Which is hard to find. The original version is hard to find now because we pulled it off the market because of the new book, right? So I have some inventory at the office. I said, well, I think I could probably figure that out for you because, I wrote it. And she goes, oh, yeah, I know. I was just kind of surprised that she answered the phone. And, they wanted 40 copies for their whatever. And then she went on to explain that she's the executive assistant to the CEO of this company who's been a big fan for years, and they've been using the book for years. And she said, he's really going to be excited that I talked to you. I said, well, here's my number. Here's my cell phone number. Tell him to give me a call.
It's funny.
And we had a great. So now I got a new friend.
Absolutely. And and it's funny because people come to my site all the time, and they do their thing and never think twice. But you talk to them once, they're fans for life, and all of a sudden they're connecting you with so many great things, and here's the key. That is true. You talk to them once, they're fans for life, but that shouldn't be why you talk to them. No, right? Absolutely not.
But I think that's the. I know it sounds obvious to say, but I think it's worth saying.
I try to do it to remember that it's a tool to meet the people, not the end.
Yeah. I think what makes it so significant is that you should reach out to people because you care. It's the love thing. You know, you're curious. You want to know who they are. You want to say thank you. You know, it's just a very basic human impulse. Right. And the blog, and you know, the blogs and Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, they're incredibly powerful tools, and they're also, as we all know, really, really easy to hide behind. And I think that if we really use all those tools as a way to connect, and again as that launching that platform into making the human voice to voice, face to face whenever possible connection, then it becomes a really incredibly powerful thing.
Okay. On that note, we're here with Steve Farber, and you just wrote here's the new book. What was the other one you wrote?
This is the Radical Leap Re-Energized, and then I'd say the other pillar of my work is Greater Than Yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Steve Farber, we're here at Blogworld. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Where can we find you on Twitter or Facebook?
Yeah, so Twitter at Steve Farber. I'm on Facebook, Steve Farber. If you can remember my name, you can pretty much find me anywhere. Yeah, and the blog, there's a theme. There's definitely a theme there. It's kind of a coincidence, a random thing. SteveFarber.com. And if you have trouble remembering my name, if you can remember the phrase "extreme leadership," that'll take you to the same place.
Wonderful. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, JW.
It was really great to have you here today.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. All right.